Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today's podcast is called Every Teacher Was Once a Student. And as usual, I'm going to begin this podcast with a quote. It is not that I'm so smart, but I stay with the questions much longer. And that's a quote by Albert Einstein. At one point, anyone that you admire, that you seek advice from, that you seek guidance from, they were once a student. Every teacher has at one time been a student. We all have to come from a starting point. We can't just be born with wisdom, be born with knowledge, be born knowing everything there is to know about anything. If we want to become knowledgeable and become experienced at anything that we're pursuing, there is this natural progression that we have to go through. And part of that is the student to teacher relationship and the student to teacher progression. Every student, every teacher at one point in time was a student. And that can be in the educational system, that can be your mentor, that can be your martial arts instructor, that could be any instructor that you'll have as far as like firearms or at the fire academy or a EMT or a lawyer. It doesn't matter what. It applies to everything. Every teacher was at one point first student, and then they perfected their craft and got better at what they were doing. This is one of the many realities that we must grow through. It's a simple progression. Just like you look at kids and see how they grow up and they develop into the person that they're becoming. They become that person through experience, through life lessons, through hardships and difficulties. But you look at those kids and then you think back to the times when you were little yourself, and you remember those hardships that you had to face and you had to go through, and that how if you were put in the same situation today with the knowledge that you have, you may do it a little bit differently, or may have chose a different direction or a different path. That's part of becoming a teacher. That's that retrospective perspective that you have on life, or on a situation that you may be going through, is a part of that gained knowledge that you get from being a student and progressing into that teacher role that comes with time and experience. Just like in nature, you have to progress through age and subsequently maturity. You have to make mistakes and experiences, which in turn will become wisdom. Failure is a big part of becoming a teacher. Making mistakes is a big part of becoming a teacher. You can't be an effective teacher and speak on something that you haven't gone through. You should have at least gone through something. I mean, being a teacher and speaking on something that you haven't gone through is similar to having a business teacher in college that never started a business or never went through any type of struggles that come with starting up a business. They have the theoretical knowledge, the book knowledge, but they don't have the practical knowledge. They don't have the knowledge that comes with staying up late. They don't have the knowledge that comes with trying to gather funds, trying to perfect their craft, trying to network, trying to be decisive, trying to go up against rejection. They don't have that experience. In some cases, some business teachers have that experience, and I'm just using that as an example. But in most of the scenarios that I've been in, as far as like professional development in the educational world, or academies that I've been through, or boot camps that I've been through, my teachers, my instructors have been people that have been through combat, have been to war, have had some length of experience in the organization, and that they have something to offer back to me. It's not just someone who decided to join and they sent them straight to, a school to become an instructor, where they only have that book knowledge. They have the book knowledge, but then they also have the practical knowledge to be able to teach from both aspects of the experience. And sometimes, and most times in my experience, practical knowledge can be a whole lot better than theoretical knowledge. I mean, theoretical knowledge can paint the picture for you, but experience The way I learn is through experience, through seeing, through doing, and stuff like that. I can definitely learn through just picking something up and reading it, but I will better retain something through actually doing it, putting my hands on it, running through it a series of different times, giving it reps and stuff like that. So a good teacher, I feel, is a healthy balance of both. They have the theoretical knowledge, they have the book knowledge, and they have the conceptual knowledge, but then they also have the practical knowledge. They also have been there, have done that, have made the mistakes, have made the failures, have overcome the failures, and then in turn can share that with you. They give that unique perspective of balance. It's the duality, the principle of polarity that we talk about, the two sides of the coin. The major difference between a teacher and a student is that a teacher has faced more failures than you have even comprehended at this point in your journey. Teachers have come up against many roadblocks. They've come up against many shortcomings. They've made bad decisions themselves. They have failed over and over and over again. But the difference between a teacher, one of the major differences between a teacher and a student, is that the teacher has overcame that failure and has stuck to the journey for longer than you even have at this point. So the teacher has seen things from a unique perspective of, I've been here, I've done that, I failed, I've made that mistake, this is how you get over that. And they're able to give that instruction to you. They're able to instruct you from a place of having been there. At the point in time that we meet our teachers, meet our mentors, we may have not even experienced a lot of the different things that they have already been through. We don't even know the right questions to ask because we haven't been in the journey long enough. And teachers are very valuable in the sense that they've made those mistakes and failures, that they've done it before. And we can lean on that knowledge to help us get through our hardships and our challenges that we may face throughout our journey, that we will inevitably face throughout our journey. Because in life, no matter what we do, we're going to face trials. It just is what it is. It's the ebbs and flows in life. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. There's going to be days when you're on top of the mountain, when you feel like you can overcome anything, and there's going to be days when you're down in the valley. It's just the ebbs and flows of life. That's how it goes. Teachers have experienced that a number of times. Just like Albert Einstein said, it's not that he's smarter, he just sticks with the problem longer. So at the point in time all these other scientists were giving up on the equation, Albert Einstein was still sitting, giving the late hours and the brain power and making mistakes and the errors and running through it over and over again and giving it reps until he actually figured it out. And that was the difference between him and other scientists. Teachers have faced the common roadblocks that you go through, and some you may not. They have stayed committed to the process for longer than you even have been on the path. We talked about that in length. That's just going over what we said already. Teachers have been on this path for a minute. Some teachers, you look at them, they got 30 years in the game. They got 20 years in the game, 15 years in the game. But they got years, they got dedication, they got blood, they got sweat, they got tears invested in this journey, invested in this path. Our teachers should be an inspiration, not just for knowledge and instruction, but as the visual representation that if we trust the process and stay committed to the journey, we will be successful. We could use our teachers as motivation. We can use our teachers as a lighthouse in the dark. Like when we get on the path, sometimes we're going to face adversity. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to seem like we can't get through it. And we've talked about it before, like how you have to have a lighthouse or a light, something to focus on in that dark time that'll help you get through those difficult situations. Your instructor, your mentor, your teacher, if you have one, if you're fortunate enough to have one, can act as that light source for you. You could be going through a hard time with something in academics, and your teacher may be a role model, and you could talk to them when you're having a hard time, like, hey, how did you face this when you were going through school, or how did you face this problem when you entered the workforce, or you could bounce ideas off of them. They could be a source of inspiration that if I just stick to it, eventually things will get better. That at the end of the day, it's not about how fast you achieve something. It's about your commitment to your goals, to what you said you're going to do, and to obtaining what you set out originally to obtain, which is whatever your goal, your desire is, whether it's educational, it's physical, like working out, maintaining a healthy body, healthy lifestyle, whether it's reading a certain amount of books, whether it's spiritual. It could be anything. This applies to anything and everything. It's just that we have to make the connections and tie it together conceptually, because everything is related. Everything is everything. So there's no isolated incidences. Everything is related, and we just have to make those connections. Teachers also allow us the unique ability to look at the path they took and avoid the mistakes they made. This is the same thing with like a parent-child relationship. Like, parents want to tell their children, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that, because I've made that mistake, I've done that. And we try to not live vicariously through our kids, but we try to explain to them what they need to do so that they don't have to face the same difficulties we face. And as kids, we've all been there, we're hard-headed. We don't want to listen to our parents. We don't want to do what they say because we think that we got life figured out. They've been on this planet 20, 30, 40 plus years, and we think that we know more than them coming into the game. Our parents have the unique experience of having already been, been through life 230, 240, 250. So they have gone through basically all that we're going to go through. For the most part, we may have different experiences based on a whole bunch of different things that we may have available to us or not available to us, or the perspective that we come from. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that make it up. But all in all, they could save us a lot of hurt and a lot of anguish, because they're in that teacher role, but at one point in time they were the student. At one point in time they were in a place where they were making mistakes, and they were naive, and they didn't do the right thing when they were supposed to, or they folded to peer pressure. So we need to respect the fact that they've already been through what we're going through, and that we need to rely on that experience, that knowledge, that wisdom, in order to make our path a little bit easier, because it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. We make it a whole lot harder than it needs to be, because we rather do things on our own, or not rely on the teachers that are out there. I'm pretty sure there's a book for pretty much anything that people are trying to do out there. There's books about finance, there's books on education, obviously, books on history, books on self-discipline, there's books on personal development, there's books on anything and everything that you might try to achieve for the most part in your life. And if there isn't a book, you can make one. But there's always something or someone that we can rely on to pull wisdom, to pull information from, that can cut that learning curve in half or make it not as steep. Knowing this reality of life gives us a light in those dark times that we usually inevitably face. We talked about that already. Life has ebbs and flows. You're going to face dark times. You're going to run into hiccups. You're going to run into speed bumps. You're going to make bad decisions. That's going to take you a while to recover. I mean, nobody lives a perfect life. You're not going to go through this life without feeling any hardships, without feeling, any disappointment, without experiencing failures, without experiencing any shortcomings. Like, it's just not going to happen. That's not how life works. What will get you through this, or what will get you through that, is a good teacher, a good mentor, having somebody in your corner that can kind of guide you through life. It could be a pastor, it could be a mentor, it could be a life coach, it could be a therapist, an actual teacher, like in the academic world. But we need somebody that we can bounce ideas off of, somebody that is grounded, somebody that has been through what we are experiencing already. And it's good to have, friends that have that you can bounce ideas off of and that you can have to help you along your journey. But in this aspect that we're talking about today, I believe that it would be better that you have somebody that is more experienced than you. You don't want to be seeking advice from people who are, going through it the same. Now, that's not the rule, because there's some exceptions to that. There's some very wise individuals that, just got their stuff together. But for the most part, you don't want to be seeking information for people that are lost just like you're lost. You know what I'm saying? Like if you both got dropped off in the middle of the woods, no compass, no map, you're both just as lost. Now, one person might have a little bit more experience than the other, but unless you're like with somebody who's super experienced and trained on how to navigate through the wild and how to read the winds and moss and all this other stuff, then they're just as lost as you. So the information that they give is a guess or speculation at best. But if you get dropped off in the middle of the woods with somebody who has been lost in the woods before and found their way out, who's done it several times over, who's gotten hurt in the process, who knows how to deal with that, who knows how to deal with nighttime and what comes with the night and the different perspectives of being lost in the woods, then that's going to help you a whole lot better than a person who's just making guesses, trying to figure it out as they go along, just like you are basically. So when seeking a teacher, try to find somebody who's been in the game for a minute, somebody who has wisdom beyond their years or wisdom that comes with years, because that's going to be the person that's going to be able to help you most, not the person that's going through the struggle or growing through the struggle at the same point in time you are. They're probably going to give you bad advice or information that may lengthen your journey. And again, that's not the rule. There are exceptions, but for the most part, that's how it is. Even though our role is a student, we can teach. Don't downplay your experience. There's a lesson in it all. Even though you're a student, you could still teach in some capacity. You've been through something of value. You've been through some experience, some part of the journey that somebody else could benefit from. You don't have to wait until you have 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years in the game. You could have a year of experience at something, and you might have learned something very vital that may be instrumental in somebody else's career. You might save somebody a lot of agony, stress, failure, pain, just by telling them that, hey, instead of going left, maybe you should go right on that one. Or instead of, doing it this way, try doing it this way. Just see how you feel about it. You still have a lot to learn, but you also have something to offer. Don't think that just because you're a student, you don't have anything to offer. Because you do. Every journey that we walk, every person's journey is their own. It's not a shared experience. Again, it could be, but for the most part, we take our journey in lives by ourselves. It's our journey. And we need to enjoy that journey, because when you get to where you get, a lot of times in my training and the academies I've been through and education wise, I'll make it to a goal or I'll make it to a new level. And I'll look back and I'll say, hey, that wasn't really as tough as I thought it was while I was going through it. And when I look back at it, I'll be like, man, I really did have a lot of fun. And I enjoyed the journey at the end of it, looking back, because hindsight is 2020. But while we're in the journey, we can also be teachers. We can also instruct, like, hey, do it this way, do it that way. We can give a perspective. We don't have to wait until we get this teacher status or somebody else tells us, hey, you're a teacher. You can be a teacher at any given level. It just depends on your experience, your wisdom, how quick you pick up stuff, what you have to offer, life experiences, stuff like that. There's a lot of factors that play into being a teacher. It's not just time. Time on this earth, time in academics. There's a lot of different factors that play into this. And most importantly, we need to choose our teachers wisely. Every teacher is not beneficial for your journey. There's some people out there that are not teaching the right thing, that are teaching the wrong things, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. But we have to be aware of that, because everybody that's out there is not good for our journey. And that might be part of making your mistakes. That might be a failure that you have to experience, or a hardship that you're going to have to go through, is choosing the right teacher. But we should try our best to choose a teacher that best aligns with our goals and the path that we're trying to take through life. Because again, we oftentimes make life harder than it has to be. It doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. It could be a whole lot simpler, but we inevitably will face hardships, setbacks, failures, and things that we got to overcome. Sometimes that might be a bad teacher. I mean, that's a part of it. I've had some bad teachers in my life. I mean, I've been here 30 years, so inevitably I'm going to have good and bad. It's yin yang principle of polarity. Is bound to happen. But just because they were bad teachers didn't mean that I didn't pull a lesson from the experience I had with them. Because there are lessons that you get in bad situations, or with failures, or with overcoming hardships, or being in those dark times, are just as important as the lessons that you get when you're in the good times and when you're on top of the mountain. There's lessons in it all, and all the lessons are important. So we just need to be aware of our surroundings, aware of who we put in our lives, and realize that everybody, every teacher, every mentor, every life coach that we look up to, at one point in time was at the same position that we are. They were students. They were lost, and they were looking for their identity, a way through it all. And we shouldn't get down on ourselves, because it's part of the journey. It's part of what we have to grow through. So just enjoy the process and live your life to the fullest.